Related to market research, what three things should market researchers know today about AI?
So, number one, understand the limitations and be in touch with your InfoSec. There's a recent study I saw in HBR, Harvard Business Review, that suggested that while over 30% of people today are using AI, generative AI tools in their work, almost 70% of them aren't telling anybody they're doing it. And so, with the risk of untrained folks being users, not necessarily knowing large language models do well and poorly, really important to be transparent, talk to your leadership, and make sure you're using it right. Another thing that we should know is that large language models, while they're really, really efficient, they also take the data that you upload and they use them in the training set. So you have to be super cautious about uploading client-owned data, client-owned PI, and of course your own company's PI. There have been a number of situations like that. Last, on a much more positive note, think about one of the best uses for AI as an individual as opposed to a company is really looking at the white sheet of paper problem. So AI, if you ask it to help you write a survey, help you write a summarization or a document, it's going to give you a pretty good idea of maybe the thoughts and areas you might want to explore, but it does a pretty bad job at pretending to be an expert in most cases, and it sometimes makes things up.
How does Dynata ensure quality with technology disruptors out there like Chat GPT and other AI platforms?
Yeah, it's a great question because there's a lot of concern that Chat GPT is going to make it easier for people who do bad things with surveys to do bad things better and at scale. For example, one of the common ways that people look for fraud in their surveys is to read through open ends and look for nonsensical or repeated answers. ChatGPT's, if it's not already being engaged for this, it will be soon. And it's pretty easy to get ChatGPT to give open text responses that look rational. So what do places like Dynata do? Well, first of all, we fight AI with AI. We have a number of machine learning and AI tools already deployed to find this stuff. But also, it's about looking for different ways that you can evaluate the survey itself. I'm not going to go into all of them because we don't want to train the bad guys how to solve them. But for example, we can look for unusual starts and stops, unusual key patterns. We can also look for matches between correlated questions in a survey. At Dynata, we have something like 196 separate checks. And so just being able to get past the open-end response isn't going to get you there with us.
What could the future of AI and market research look like together?
Oh, it's a great question. I don't think anybody really knows. I think that there's going to be a lot more market research required to figure out what the creatives are doing with generative AI. The creatives are starting down a journey where they're using generative AI as an approach to potentially target ads creatives to individuals based on their targeting perspective. That's going to be very new, very interesting. There's going to be a lot of research to see whether or not that actually works. So I think on the partner side, market research is going to be out there evaluating a lot of what people are doing. In terms of what market research is going to be using this for, looking at vast quantities of open-ended data, looking at summarizations of learnings across multiple client studies is going to be, I think, very important. Right now, meta-analyses are time-consuming, take a lot of time from researchers to sort those out. Same thing with looking at trends and trackers and wave over wave analyses. I think these tools are going to make those much, much faster, much, much better. And then I think there's going to be a lot of ups and poor choices that are going to happen on the way. One of them right now, I think, is there's a number of people who are trying to figure out whether or not they can use synthetic panels, which is essentially making generative AI pretend to be different people and answer questions and use that in place of surveys. We're early on research there, but no one's going to be surprised that they don't perform particularly well. but there may also be advantages to some kinds of hybrid real panelist and Gen AI synthetic responses, kind of like multiple imputation methodology. That'll be really interesting moving forward. It's an exciting time to be in this industry.
And so legal always becomes a question. What potential AI legislation could the future hold that we should look out for?
Yeah, so a lot of jurisdictions are starting to look at what kind of laws they want to employ to regulate AI and to avoid some of the dangers. Now, when I talk about the dangers of AI, we've all seen the movies. That's not the dangers they're worried about. Worrying about the current state of technology, worrying about AI taking over the planet or firing the nukes or anything like that is a little bit like worrying about overpopulation on Mars when we talk about the Mars mission. We still haven't figured out how to get there yet. So one step at a time. Not to say that's not where the problems we'll be thinking about in 10, 20 years. But today, the kinds of regulations we're seeing, I think, are best exemplified. Not surprisingly, the EU is coming out first, and so there's the EU Artificial Intelligence Act, and it's really focused on a few core forbidden things. They don't want people using social scoring of citizens. They don't want this technology being used to create biometric identification in public spaces without people knowing about it. They don't want predictive policing. If you remember the movies about arresting people before they do a crime, that kind of thing. And they don't want, and this is, I think, really much more critical for our industry, they don't want people creating subliminal systems that are meant to distort or manipulate or deceive individuals. So you think about the amount of fake news, fake propaganda that's being produced by trolls,